Hi guys, this is George back here with another video and welcome to another top 10 countdown where today I'm going to be counting down the top 10 defunct roller coasters that I wish I was able to ride. Of course, roller coasters don't live forever. Roller coasters open and then they close for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes they come to the end of their service life. Sometimes there was an accident on there and the park just remove it. Or sometimes they're relocated, or sometimes they just close without any warning at all, as we've seen quite a lot recently with a certain company over in the USA. But that's not what today's video is about. I'm going to be talking about the defunct roller coasters that I wish I was able to ride. Of course, sometimes there are roller coasters that you want to ride, however they close before you get a chance to go and ride them. And that is what I'm going to be focusing on today. There are lots of different roller coasters that I wish I was able to ride, but here are my top 10 biggest bucket list coasters that I wish I got to ride that are now defunct. Before we get into this video, this is my opinion. Leave your opinions in the comments below. Maybe you got to ride some of these roller coasters. If you did, let me know what it was like. Do you agree with my list? Would you put something else on this list? Let me know what you guys think. But let's get straight in with number 10. Coming in at number 10, we have Son of Beast at Kings Island, an RCCA wooden coaster. Now this is an extremely iconic roller coaster. It opened in the year 2000 and it had a very rough history. So it opened in 2000 as the world's tallest wooden roller coaster. It was over 200 feet tall. It was the tallest wooden roller coaster in the world. It was also the first wooden roller coaster to top 200 feet. So it was a big deal for the park. This was also the first wooden coaster that ever had an inversion. This had a big 118 foot tall vertical loop on this roller coaster. However, there was a lot of problems with this ride. Of course, originally it had different trains. However, it was causing a lot of stress on the track. So they ended up putting new trains onto it in 2006, I believe. However, these new trains had problems making their way over the vertical loop. So therefore the loop was removed also in 2006 to make sure that the train could complete the circuit. However, then in 2008, 2009, the ride actually closed in 2009. However, it might have been 2008 because I think the ride might have been standing but not operating for a bit. I'm not 100% sure. But at some point towards the end of the coaster's life, there was an accident on there. There was a big pothole on the track. The train went through it and a lot of those people ended up having neck injuries. And after that, the park were like, do you know what? We're done with this ride. It's been problematic enough. We're scrapping it. And in 2009, the ride officially closed. And of course, there's a very iconic roller coaster of pretty much like the whole structure just being like falling down to the ground. It's a very iconic video that you can find over on YouTube. But as much as I wish I could have ridden this roller coaster, I have ridden a roller coaster by the same manufacturer and it was absolutely terrible. I've also heard this roller coaster was terrible. However, the main reason I wish I got to ride it was so I could say I went on a 200 foot wooden roller coaster. I went on the world's first 200 foot wooden roller coaster. The world's first wooden coaster with an inversion. It was an iconic ride, however, it did have its problems. Coming in at number 9, we have Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain in California. An Intamin wooden coaster that was originally the world's tallest roller coaster. When this first opened, it opened as the world's tallest roller coaster. It had two tracks. Well, I say two tracks, it was a Mobius loop, so it was a racing coaster. So of course you went round on one side and then you'd go around to the other side and then you could do the second side. I don't think you got to do both sides. I think you had to queue up to do the second side again, unlike with Twisted Colossus that's now there. I did get to ride Twisted Colossus last year, which is the RMC conversion of this roller coaster. However, I would have loved to experience the original one. Even though I imagine Twisted Colossus is better, I would have loved to say that I rode what once was the world's tallest roller coaster. It was a very iconic ride. I remember seeing a video of it when I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, when I was watching some top 10 roller coaster video, and this was pretty high on the list. So yeah, it would have been nice to be able to experience that. However, unfortunately, I was too late getting to the park. But you know what? Twisted Colossus, which has replaced it, is an absolutely fantastic ride, and I do imagine that that one is better than this. Coming in at number 8, we have Mindbender at the Edmonton Mall in Canada. This was a very iconic Schwarzkopf looping coaster, and it didn't actually close too long ago. It was only a couple years ago that it closed, and this was quite a big loss for this park. A lot of people really enjoyed this roller coaster. I'd heard so much about it over the years. So many people went to ride it and said about how it was one of the most intense roller coasters they've ever ridden and how amazing it was. It was a big ride. It was over 100 feet tall. It had 3 inversions on there. It looked really intense. The way it took those loops, it had some great pacing. It absolutely sped through its layouts. It looked like a great fun ride. I have done a couple of different Schwarzkopf roller coasters. Of course, I've done Olympia Looping, which comes to Hyde Park Winter Wonderland every year. I also went on Scorpion at Busch Gardens Tampa before that closed. And that one was all right. I was towards the back row with that one, and it was quite rough. Olympia Looping is the same from my experience with that. I normally try to ride it on the front row because it was rougher towards the back. But yeah, I do wish I got to ride Scorpion again to get a front row ride on it and see if that's similar. But with Mindbender, apparently it was very smooth. It had smaller trains as well, so maybe that was part of to do with the pacing of it. It just looked like it went through the layout so much faster than a lot of these other Schwarzkopf looping coasters. And Olympia Looping is a very intense ride, and if this is anything like Olympia Looping, then I imagine it would be no different. So this was a coaster that I really wanted to experience. However, unfortunately, it was just taken down with no announcement really. I imagine maybe it was coming towards the end of its service life. It was a pretty old ride. However, it's a shame to just see that it was just taken down without any warning. Coming in at number 7, we have Moonsault Scramble at Fuji-Q Highland, the original 200-foot roller coaster. Yes, you may be thinking, what about Magnum XL 200? That was the first coaster to hit 200 feet. Technically, it wasn't. It was the first full circuit roller coaster to reach 200 feet. Moonsault Scramble was officially the first roller coaster to get to 200 feet. However, not everyone on the train reached 200 feet because it was a shuttle coaster. It wasn't a full circuit. It was kind of like a Volcano boomerang. However, it had slightly different elements on there. It had this really unique 2-in-1 kind of inversion element on there. There were 2 inversions on here that were packed into one element. I think it was called a pretzel knot, something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But it was a very unique looking ride, and it was absolutely massive. Apparently, it was incredibly intense as well. I would have loved to experience this. However, unfortunately, I've never been to Japan. I've never been to Fuji-Q Highland, and this wasn't operating for particularly long as far as I'm aware. So you had to be pretty lucky and pretty quick to react if you were able to ride this ride. But if you have experienced it, let me know what it was like. I would have loved to experience this coaster. However, it wasn't to be. Coming in at number 6, we have Batman and Robin the Chiller at Six Flags Great Adventure, a set of 2 premier rides, LIM launch coasters, and these looked really interesting. Of course, you may be familiar with the Mr. Freeze coasters at a couple of the Six Flags parks. This was a similar ride, however, with some slight differences. There were 2 tracks with this one. Of course, you had the Batman side and the Robin side, and they both had different elements. One had a cobra roll and one had an inverted top hat, and I really want to know what an inverted top hat feels like. However, the main reason why I would have liked to experience this ride is because of the interaction. Of course, you go around with these layouts that look really interesting, interacting with the 2 coasters. I love roller coasters that interact with each other. So this would have been a good one, and it had inversions on there as well, of course. And then, of course, you went into kind of an upward barrel roll into a spike and then rolled back and did it all again backwards. So it was a very unique ride. I wish I got to experience it, but yeah, I didn't get to Great Adventure quick enough, and yeah, I wasn't able to ride this one. However, similar rides can still be found at some of the Six Flags park. You got the Mr. Freeze roller coasters, of course. They've still got their inverted top hats, but yeah, this one unfortunately is no longer around. Coming in at number 5, we have Tower of Terror 2 at Australia's Dreamworld. This was the world's first roller coaster to officially top 400 feet. We got another Magnum XL situation here. Top Thrill Dragster you may know to be the world's first official strata coaster, which is a coaster that tops between 400 and 500 feet. However, this was technically the first, as even though it's not a full shuttle coaster. Of course, it needs to be a shuttle coaster. It needs to be a full circuit coaster to be able to claim the record. But this one did come before Top Thrill Dragster. This originally opened as the world's tallest and fastest roller coaster. It launched you backwards to a maximum speed of 100 miles per hour. What does launching backwards at 100 miles per hour feel like? I don't know, because at the moment the only coaster where you can experience that sensation that's not taken down is Top Thrill 2, and we all know what's happened with that one. That's been SBNO for the best part of the year, so it only operated for 8 days. Hopefully that'll be open again in 2025. But Tower Terror 2 was the first one to do this, and I wish I got to experience this. It was a very iconic ride. I really want to go to Australia. This was a big reason why I wanted to go. It was sad when it closed. However, unfortunately, it was a problematic ride, and I can see why the park removed it. As much as that, another similar ride, Superman Escape from Krypton at Six Flags Magic Mountain, I did see that roller coaster when I was there. However, it wasn't in operation, and it hasn't been in operation very much recently. And to be honest, I can't see that sticking around for much longer. I don't think that's ever going to operate again. But Tower Terror 2 has officially closed. It closed a few years ago. We know it's gone. It's been removed. It's done for, and I wish I got to experience it. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. Coming in at number 4, we have Volcano the Blast Coaster at King's Dominion, an Intamin suspended launch coaster. This thing was really unique, and of course we know that with unique rides they can have their problems, and this was one of them. It was an unreliable ride. It was known for rolling back a lot. It was known for having lots of maintenance problems. However, it was a very popular ride at King's Dominion. It was a suspended coaster. You launched forwards into a bank turn, into another launch, and then you went into an Immelman that shot you out of the top of a volcano. It had a few different inversions on here. It didn't look to be the longest ride, however, it looked pretty intense, and I really wish I got to ride it. I remember literally, as soon as I found out about this ride, I didn't know about this ride until literally a few weeks before it closed. I saw a video of this ride and I was like, I really want to ride that. And then literally a few weeks after I first saw that video, the park were like, yeah, it's closing, goodbye. And it was taken out without any warning really as well. It just kind of happened. And of course it is getting replaced this year with a B&M Wing Coaster. However, it was sad to see this go. It was a unique ride. I really wanted to experience it. However, yeah, it did close a few years ago now. And it's been removed. It's never going to operate again. And we'll probably never see another ride like this, to be honest, because of how problematic it was in terms of maintenance. Here we go. We have come to number 3 now, and we're going to be looking at a very problematic type of ride system just here. These next 2 rides are pretty similar. So coming in at number 3, we have Hypersonic XLC at King's Dominion, an S&S air launch roller coaster. Now this thing didn't have the most exciting layout. However, what it did have was a punchy launch. Of course, S&S, you may know of some of these rides, using compressed air to launch the train at record-breaking speeds and accelerations, and this thing had one of the most intense launches you could ever experience on a roller coaster. It went up into a top hat. It looked like you get some amazing airtime on there. It then turned round, went through a couple of S-bends, and that was the end of the ride. So not the longest of layouts, however, it looked like it had a good punch to it. I wish I could have experienced this. I would have loved to experience what that launch felt like. However, it was a problematic ride. Again, it had its maintenance problems, and it didn't last for very long either. It wasn't in operation for very long at all. The park decided pretty quickly that they wanted to get rid of it because of the maintenance, which was a shame. However, it was an iconic ride, and I would have loved to experience it, and I'd love to know what you think of it if you were able to experience it. It was a very iconic ride, and I wish I could know what that launch felt like. Coming in at number 2 then, another S&S compressed air launch roller coaster. However, this one only closed at the beginning of 2024. About a year ago this was announced to close, and this was DOA Dona at Fuji-Q Highland. This had a bit of a history. So it started off with a top hat like Hypersonic XLC did. However, this one had a more intense launch. So originally it launched from 0 to 107 miles per hour in about 1.7 seconds. However, then you went through that launch into a massive kind of overbank, airtime hill top hat thing, and then you went back into the brake run and back into the station. However, the park decided, you know what? This wasn't good enough for them, and they decided to make the launch even faster. So they did some tweaks to it back in 2017. They closed the ride, they took the top hat out and replaced it with a vertical loop. They also changed the speed of it and made it so it launched from 0 to 112 miles per hour in about 1.5 seconds. So they already had the record. They decided that that record wasn't good enough for them, and they went and changed it, and to be honest, this was where the ride had its downfall. It had some major problems. Of course, this ride is very well known for people having neck injuries after coming off of it. Whether that was to do with the acceleration rate, whether it was to do with the loop being on there, there were rumours that it could have been potentially the transition from the old track onto the new track, where there was quite a noticeable jolt, apparently, from what I've heard from people who experienced it. Maybe that was to do with people's neck injuries. However, we'll never know. We'll probably never see a roller coaster with this kind of acceleration again. I don't imagine there's going to be any parks that are going to be wanting to take that risk. It's a shame. It was an iconic ride. I would have loved to experience it. DOA Dona was a very iconic ride, the world's fastest acceleration on a roller coaster, and ever since that closed, that record has been held by Stealth at Thorpe Park. So coming in at number 1, my most biggest bucket list coaster that I wish I could have ridden that is now defunct. And this is a set of 2 roller coasters again. And it's Dueling Dragons at Universal Islands of Adventure. This was a set of dueling B&M inverted roller coasters. I love a B&M invert, and these looked like they had amazing layouts. Not only that, they also interacted with each other. And it wasn't a case of like occasionally seeing the other train. You got very close to these other trains. I imagine there were some really close near-miss elements on here with the other train. It looked amazing. There were a few different inversions on each side. I love B&M inverts. They're intense, they're enjoyable, they're smooth. However, this one, it didn't even operate for particularly long. I don't know the reason why they removed it. I don't know if there was a reason, whether it was coming to the end of its service life perhaps. Of course, with the Incredible Hulk, that was retracked, but this one was just completely scrapped, which was an absolutely massive shame. It was replaced by Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, so it got a good replacement. However, I do wish I could have experienced these coasters because the interactive elements on these rides looked absolutely incredible. So there we go, there is my top 10 list of defunct roller coasters that I wish I got to ride. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree with me? Are there other roller coasters you wish you could have ridden? Did you ride any of these rides? Let me know what you think. But that's now the end of this video here. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at George Kelly and follow me on Twitter at George Kelly. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe everyone, and I will see you all later. Bye.